Perspective shift, unveiling paradigms and perceptions. Navigating Christian doctrines can be overwhelming. Returning to biblical interpretation is vital for clarity and unity. Shifting perspectives to align with the Word of God brings authenticity to our faith. Let's seek truth together with open hearts and minds. Perspective Shift with Dare Akinsanya.
Hello everyone, my name is Dare Akinsanya. Welcome to this week's episode of Perspective Shift, Unveiling Paradigms in Perceptions. In last week's episode, we touched on how God is faithful and will make provisions out of love for the things we didn't even know to ask for. We can now contrast that with how we have painted his character as someone very callous that will deny his beloved children the things that he knows that they need and claims that he loves them unconditionally. If we prayed for something and haven't received it, we must recognize that God is not the reason why we have not yet got it. We must evaluate if our prayer was valid, that is, if it's in alignment with God's will, and that we uttered those prayers in faith without doubt. If that checks out, then we must realize that the forces of darkness may be delaying the manifestations that we seek. And that means it is time for some serious warfare on Satan's camp to take back what belongs to us. This week, we are knocking on John's door in chapter 6 to explore some things that he documented with a little more detail. John chapter 6 verses 26 to 27. Jesus answered them and said, "Most assuredly I say to you, you seek me not because you saw the signs, but because you ate of the loaves and were filled. Do not labor for the food which perishes, but for the food which endures to everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has set his seal on him." And here is insight number 19. Labor for enduring nourishment. In our interactions, it is very common for people to seek relationships, alliances, or assistance primarily for our personal gain. This behavior, while sometimes driven by necessity or opportunity, often leads to a transactional mindset where people are valued based on their utility rather than their intrinsic worth. The Bible offers wisdom on this issue, highlighting the dangers of using others solely for personal benefit, and it encourages a more godly approach to relationships. Seeking others for help is not a bad practice in itself. It is a requirement. God operates through humans. Everyone has been positioned by God in this world to provide help to someone. So it is a natural thing. In fact, if we need help and we are either too timid to ask for help or too proud to ask for help, pride is at work. We definitely do not want to operate in pride at all costs, because God detests pride. So therefore, it is not a crime to ask for help or seek a fellow brethren for assistance. And when we are turned down, it just means that the person we sought is not the one that God has assigned for that particular task to help us. It is not a good attitude to become bitter when we are turned down or rejected. Rather, we should be thanking God and letting him know that we are grateful for the avenues he has prepared for us, and that we know that he will lead us to the resource or the people that he has assigned to be of help to us. God often solves problems through people. And if we dissect all the problems in this world, we will realize that at the root of it all is a wisdom issue. That is, every problem is a wisdom problem. When we know what to do and we take action, the problem will go away. James says, anyone who has a problem, let him ask for wisdom from God. James 1:5. If any one of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. We will realize, therefore, that if every persistence of a problem is a lack of wisdom, what James was saying in reality is that if any one of us has a problem or a challenge, let him ask God first. God can then instruct us to seek particular people for help, and he will also prepare that person. When we come into contact with such people, there is an easy synergy, and the outcome is often positive. What we do sometimes instead is we look around us to see who can be of help to us, and then we pursue them. Well, it's okay, but it is best to seek God for assistance first, to know who we need to pursue. At the least, it is better to speak out than waste away, but we will save more time and energy when we seek God first, and he can then connect us miraculously with whoever he has empowered to help us. Many times the help may be mutual. We may have something our helper needs, and it can be a mutually beneficial exchange, even if it is not of equal value. What is rampant in the world is that people tend to hunt for praise in the name of looking for someone to help. With such mindset, we probably could care less about the person, and our self-interest would consume us more than anything else. So what are we doing to be of assistance to the person that we are seeking help from? They may not ask for it, but everybody needs help. We will be too naive not to realize that everyone has one challenge or the other. It may be in varying degrees. Even if we cannot do an equal exchange, there is something, it could be 1% to 100% fold of something they did to us. But our desire, if it's in us to be of some assistance to them, there is something that we can always find that will be of benefit to them. A mere thank you may usually not suffice in many circumstances. Also, if someone has been of help to us in the past and are currently either not able to continue to be of help to us, or they became offended by something that we did for some reason, the fact that they were of help to us in the past puts them in the list of people who ever helped us. Our gratitude for them should be eternal, even if they turned and became our enemy. We must actually realize that we must have done something, or somebody may have said something about us that changed their attitudes towards us, regardless of if they were right or wrong. But if it is a relationship that God needs, God will mend it somehow. But if it is not being mended, maybe God doesn't need that relationship. Or maybe they have served and completed their assignment in our lives at that point. All the same, they should still hold a special place in our hearts, regardless of what the circumstances may be. At this juncture, it is pertinent to clarify a few things before we proceed, and then we'll circle back. A question to ponder on is, why do people seek others solely for personal benefit? Answers are not far-fetched. Number one is self-preservation and gain. At its core, seeking others solely for personal benefit is often driven by a desire for self-preservation, security, or gain. People might seek out powerful allies to advance their careers, wealth, or social standing. The Bible warns against such self-serving relationships as they often lead to corruption and exploitation. One great example can be found in Proverbs chapter 19 verse 4, which states that wealth often attracts many friends, but even the closest friend of a poor person eventually deserts him. This verse reflects the reality that people often gravitate towards others from whom they can benefit and abandon those who offers them nothing in return. For the most part, wealth attracts more fake friends than real ones. Many of us fall prey, especially when our ego is being fanned. But the truth is the truth. Sometimes we see the warning signs, but we ignore them. Don't get me wrong, it is good to be of help to somebody. It is very fulfilling to see somebody in a bad situation and help them out of it. But we should be helping other people out of genuine love for them. A second reason why we seek help from others is fear of lack or insecurity. People may seek others for personal gain out of fear of lack or insecurity. They might fear that they won't succeed or survive without the help of others. While it's natural to seek help in times of need, the problem arises when relationships are built solely on the basis of what the other person can provide to us. The Bible teaches that our ultimate security should come from God, not from human alliances. David echoed in many places in the book of Psalms that it is better to trust in the Lord than to put our confidence in man, because the trust in man may fail, but the trust in God will never fail. Let's also talk about why it is not advisable to seek others solely for personal benefit. Number one, from what we said earlier, it breeds superficial relationships. When relationships are built on personal gain, they lack depth and authenticity. Such relationships are often temporary, and they dissolve when the benefit no longer exists. This superficiality is contrary to biblical model for relationships, which emphasizes love, selflessness, and mutual edification. In Paul's letter to the Philippians, he advises that nothing should be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, that everyone should esteem others better than themselves. He said to them to look out not for their own interest, but also for the interests of others. That is, look for relationships that are mutually beneficial. A second disadvantage is it eventually leads to disappointment or betrayal. When people use others for personal benefit, they set themselves up for disappointment and betrayal at the end of the day. The story of Absalom in 2 Samuel is a poignant example. Absalom sought to gain the throne of Israel by manipulating and using others. He garnered the favor of the people through deceit and ultimately betrayed his own father, King David. His pursuit of power and personal gain led to his downfall and eventual death. A third disadvantage is it reflects lack of trust in God. Relying solely on others for personal benefit often indicates a lack of trust in God's provision. Instead of manipulating circumstances and people to get ahead, the Bible calls us to trust that God will provide for our needs. In Matthew 63, that we quote every time, Jesus said, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." This reminds us that when we prioritize God and his will, he will take care of our needs, removing the necessity of using others for personal gain. The story of Judas in the Bible, with his betrayal of Jesus, was a very sad and unfortunate one. It is one of the most tragic examples recorded in the Bible of seeking personal benefit at the expense of others. Judas was one of Jesus' 12 disciples, but he betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. His betrayal was driven by greed, and in seeking personal gain, he lost his integrity, his relationship with Jesus, and ultimately his life. He had remorse afterwards, but it was too late. The remorse that Judas felt afterwards underscores the emptiness and the dangers, the destruction that can ensue from using others for selfish purposes. Here is a tale of an ambitious merchant. Once upon a time, in a bustling marketplace, there was a merchant who was known for his shrewd business acumen. He was skilled in making connections, and he sought out wealthy traders and influential officials to advance his business. He was very professional, of course, and offered his clients perks, but never really cared about their lives, because his true motive was to secure more favorable deals and expand his wealth, which he did for a while. On a fateful day, famine struck the land, and the merchant found himself in deep trouble and in dire need. The traders he had once courted turned their backs on him, as they had no further use for him. The officials too refused to help, seeing no benefit in aiding a merchant who could no longer offer them anything in return. Apparently, they really never cared anything about him either. It was just business for them as usual. The merchant realized a little too late that his relationships were built on selfishness and not on genuine care or mutual respect. He lost everything, of course, not just his wealth, but the respect of those around him as well. Many of us pretend to desire relationship with God, but what we are really after is what we stand to gain. God, however, is unlike us and loves us unconditionally regardless, but our actions are seeds that will generate results after its kind. God knows who approaches him selfishly and the ones that approaches him as a child. God cannot be mocked or tricked. He has no reservations for hypocrisy or games, and he is a just God who weighs all actions and rewards them accordingly. In Matthew 15:7-9, Jesus speaking, "Hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, These people draw near to me with their mouth, and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men." In other words, Jesus saw through their games. Can you imagine someone seeking a mentor and asking them questions they already have access for, just to pretend as if they are learning something from the mentor? Meanwhile, what they really needed from that mentor is the sponsorship from the mentor to give them what they need. Even as humans, some of those mentors knows the ones that are playing games with them, and they treat them accordingly, let alone God, who can see through our hearts. And when nothing happens, we become offended and bitter and turn away. Yet, the problem was in our approach and has nothing to do with whom we approached. The interesting thing is that we humans can sometimes tell when someone is just seeking us for their personal gain. If we humans have such capacities, we can imagine God, who sees our hearts and knows when we are just opportunists or if we truly desire to have a relationship with him. Are we not being penny wise and pound foolish when we seek him just for personal gains and could care less about his will on earth? Our immediate need beclouds our judgment, leading us to pursuing wrong goals. Jesus encouraged us to genuinely seek his kingdom unselfishly, regardless of the benefits. And he, in turn, ensures that we lack nothing that we give up for him. Quite complex, but simple at the same time. The Bible consists of several ironical statements, and this is one of such. A similar example in the Bible is when the Bible says that the one that gives increases while the one that hoards diminishes. Likewise, the one that seeks God with their whole heart, without any strings attached, that doesn't care much about what he or she gets in return, those are the ones that really get abundant resources from God. But the one that seeks to get ends up getting nothing most of the time. I guess it's God's way of filtering out greed and discontentment. The one that gets what they didn't bargain for are usually genuinely gracious and are quick to spreading the love around. Whereas the one that seeks to get, they're usually mainly concerned with acquiring wealth and may be carried away with too much investment mentality. Let me be clear, it is a wise thing to have investment mentality, but our focus should not be on the investment. It should be on fulfilling our purpose on earth, which is indirectly carrying out God's will on this earth. Here's an important question for us. Would we continue to serve God when we get our breakthroughs? Likewise, would we continue to serve God if we never got what we were seeking for? And let's say all hell broke loose and it seems material wealth or well-being is never going to manifest. Would we still continue to serve God? Can we be like Job and say, even though he slays me, yet will I trust him? Again, the truth is, God knows when we are sold out for him, and he won't sell us out. Fulfillment comes when we are sold out regardless of earthly manifestations. Money is a very good thing, but wealth by itself does not compare to the joy and fulfillment that comes from doing God's will. When God is pleased with us, his favor is automatic. Genesis 25:29 through 34. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, sell me your birthright as of this day. And Esau said, look, I am about to die. So what is this birthright to me? Then Jacob said, swear to me as of this day. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. Then he ate and drank, arose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Despise is a strong word. Esau sold his birthright for food. How many of us do the same? We choose to focus on our immediate gratification and not give the consequences of our actions much thought. Sometimes we ignore the warning signs when they are even available, and we pursue personal desires that are temporary and often short-lived. What we eat today will digest, and some discarded within 24 hours. That's why Jesus spoke boldly to the people seeking him and told them what their intentions really were. He, however, cautioned them that they are seeking superfluous or inconsequential things when they were supposed to be seeking supernatural sustenance. That was from a place of love from Jesus. His desire is for them to graduate from earthly desires into kingdom mindset. Philippians 3:18 through 19, for many walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Christ, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who set their mind on earthly things. As I round up tonight, not all admirers have good intentions, and not all good intentions come from admirers. Seeking others solely for personal benefit is a path that is fraught with pitfalls. The Bible teaches that relationships should be built on love, trust, and mutual respect, not on selfish ambition or gain. When we prioritize our interest above others, we risk superficial relationships. We risk disappointment and betrayal, and we also risk fracturing our trust in God's provisions. Instead, we should seek to emulate the selfless love of Christ, building relationships that reflect God's love and grace. By placing our trust in God and loving others as we love ourselves, we align ourselves with His will and open the door to genuine, lasting relationships that honor God. This is the biblical model for relationships, one that seeks to serve rather than to be served, and to give rather than to receive. May God grant us the grace to find, recognize, and build genuine relationships around us. May we receive the grace to fellowship with God for who He is and not for selfish gains. May the will of God on earth be our primary goal and not the cares of this world. Help us, O Lord, to love You with all our hearts and might, in Jesus' mighty name. And with that, we have come to the end of this week's episode. Please connect via akinsd.com, akinsd.com/podcast, or through my YouTube podcast channel or social media avenues. I am grateful for all the comments and testimonials and feedbacks that I receive. And please keep them coming. You never know who your testimony will encourage or be of help to. And as always, I hope that this episode has been of some value to you, and I want to thank you for listening. Have a great week ahead, and remember that Jesus is Lord of all.